What if you can raise $10 million plus for your new fund or acquisition so that you don't have to stay stuck in the real estate syndication world, and you can actually grow and scale the revenues and the profit margin by commencing and closing on larger transactions, 8-figure plus transactions, more predictably by having the relationships to do it and having everything set up for you to do it in a systematic, repeatable way. That's what Raises.com is. And we help people make that transformation for them to be able to go from minor real estate syndication to actually closing on larger deals. And so this is not for everybody. This is only for people who are working on some syndication, some small transactions, and are looking to scale their revenues by closing on larger transactions in a proper, compliant way. This is not for somebody who is working on one pre-revenue idea that is like some prototype or anything. This is for somebody who is open to working on closing transactions from a proven syndication business model, and they would like to actually commence either a fund or set up larger acquisitions for them to hit the types of profit margins that they're looking for. This is for somebody who is ambitious to do this and who is hungry and urgent to do this. It's not really for somebody who isn't sure of what they want to do, or they're somebody who is, they're working on an industry agnostic fashion. So if you would like to become that person to close on these larger transactions, then this is for you. Let's continue. And Raises.com Inc. is a company that helps people make the transformation from minor syndicator or minor deal maker to actually closing on larger transactions by leveraging 5 different systems, to make this happen. And this process is called the self-serve investment banking process, which we've created. It's a new way of getting people to do this. And so simply put, we've raised over $152 million US at the time of this recording. This is a combination of equity and debt in situations where it was compliant to do so. We're direct proponents of these transactions getting done. And so in assisting people through making all these transactions, my name is Natsu Myers and I'm the founder at Raises.com. The way that we got set up and the way that everything works is I used to work at what was called an exempt market dealer, a company that is legally allowed to sell securities to private investors. I've since then moved on to set up Raises.com in building other exempt market dealers and setting up other investment banks in the process. And our current focus is self-serve investment banking, the 2-week ready raise of PEAT accounts, which assists people in making this transformation from a minor syndicator in real estate or syndicator of small deals to somebody working on larger transactions at scale. So the first system that needs to be built are the profit systems, because the problem is that working on minor syndication of part-time real estate investing or minor syndications is that the deals are small. And when you work on small deals, the cash flow is small as well. It's just math. Less units, less people, less rent, less money. And that's combined with the fact that if it's being syndicated, then there are more people that eat a piece of the deal, meaning that the small amounts of profit that comes from those transactions has to be split amongst more people, and then that you divide something small by something big, you get something even smaller. And third, many people have the bias of believing that people who work a 9 to 5 or things like that can get into this type of thing very easily. It's more of a mass market type of thing, so it can be much more competitive than something that is off market, and it requires more esoteric knowledge. So the easy answer is working on larger transactions that are off market by first understanding if they're larger, generally speaking, they're operational and everything, then the profit margins and the cash flow rather is larger as well. Bigger deals, more units, and more activity, more revenues. Then from there, rather than the typical syndication model, understanding that a lot of these off-market deals are structured in ways that there are fewer participants. Fewer participants, more cash flow, big number divided by small number is still a bigger number than the prior. And third, because these deals are off-market, it requires a different set of skills for you to be able to originate them and to actually transact them. And this esoteric knowledge brings in less competition from the mass market, meaning that it's a blue ocean, less competition. Godi, one of our members, uses this system in originating and working on getting access to larger apartment complexes rather than minor syndications even though he has large AUM, the syndications still aren't sufficient to bring in the opportunity for somebody to be an asset manager full time. So Goti has been able to originate some nice large apartment deals and already has the investors for those as well. Ade was another professional that worked on the typical, small deal at a time, leveraging your own capital. But now that he's been able to raise capital to a larger extent, the amount of profit he would make in a typical fund setup, 2 and 20, are much more substantial. And Abdiel and Ken, who work, their team includes ex-JP Morgan staff. They're managing to raise a $75 million fund. This is a Regulation A and a Reg D, $100 million fund, for them to be able to scale the typical real estate syndications that they've been doing. So now the type of profit and even potentially going public, it's like comparing apples and oranges. So next, it comes the mandates. Because especially in this day, when it comes to new mergers and acquisitions, entrepreneurs popping up, many people have the bias of focusing on the deal. They get the deal before the capital, rather than getting the capital and understanding what capital would flow to, rather than getting a deal and just hoping and praying that the capital would magically flow to it. The problem is people spend months and even years talking about acquiring an off-market deal and thinking that talking to people who are selling an asset or talking to brokers who inflate the valuation of an asset would be something that is worth talking to. And then they hit investors last minute and get surprised when investors say no after spending a year working on an unfundable deal. The solution is simply to work with and talk to and understand what buy-side investors want in the first place, so that you would actually know what people would invest in prior to you going to people who won't even, who won't even invest or assist you in funding either debts or equity, the deal that you found in the first place. So get the capital, and this is what the real deal makers, Dan Pina, all these people, they focus on getting the capital in place and knowing the systems behind getting the capital in place prior to wasting time with origination. And then with that, now the mandate system, Almus, rather than working with an expensive investment bank that would charge $300,000, Almus worked with us. It was an upper 4-figure investment to begin working with us, and he used this to get the mandates of the buy-side investors directly, rather than play the game of working with an intermediary, because he understood what people wanted to invest in and then originated the right deals for them to invest in it. Roofing.com founder Hunter acquired multiple transactions and is working on sourcing exactly what his investors want, because he has the mandates first, rather than waste time originating. Mark is building a multi-strategy fund in the construction niche, and he knows what investors want and is now building everything around what they want, rather than thinking about what investors may want first. Many people, it's like, okay, get into relationships to private equity investors and everything, because how can you actually get a deal, even a syndication? Many people stuck in the syndication world or stuck in working on any transaction in general, they may have a lot of partners that are able to assist them in transacting. However, when it comes to a larger, more off-market transaction, these types of transactions are much more, they're more nuanced. And so not having the network and the people to actually give you the initial feedback for them to fund your deals in the first place can be something that you don't even know. And then from there, not having the group of people that have actually closed transactions is really troublesome, because then you wouldn't even know what types of deals people would fund in the first place. And then going from there and not even having and not even being able to be introduced to such people leaves you blind. The solution is simply to work with people that have actually closed transactions, so you know the types of transactions and the types of structures that are most suitable to be closed. And then you look at the types of deals and the types of mandates that are out there by just talking to the investor direct, by directly communicating with them and being introduced to them in places where it's compliant and legal to do so that you'll be able to actually know what deals can get funded in the first place. So Stev leveraged a relationship, as he's the founder of End-to-End Computing, and he's working on closing an 8-figure plus transaction right at this moment. Ade leverage relationships to stir the direction of the type of software he would use and the fund structure he would set up by talking to people in our mastermind who have closed 8 figures plus in setting up funds. Richard closed several transactions just through the relationships on Raises.com. The acquisition of a commercial brokerage, the funding of a debt fund in excess of 3.2 million US, and several other deals he's working on as he's joined us and he's built lifelong relationships. Amarinder closing in excess of 20 million US dollars just based on the relationships that Raises.com and our associates were able to bring him. And some of our members even meeting across the country, saying hi to each other and doing deals remote. But then when it comes to people who work on syndication and friends and family rounds, many people don't understand the system. Structuring the legals, the compliance, and the financials in a deal that is not just a small friends or family or a small syndication thing. This is something that is a private placement or maybe a large off-market transaction that involves, scrutiny from different securities regulators such as the SEC. Understanding the financial statements may be completely different because the types of analyses that will be required for a tiny real estate syndication would likely be different than one that is more for a larger off-market deal. And then third, understanding the best legal structure for you to actually benefit from making the profit margins that you want in the first place. Because again, a minor syndication may be a bit different than working on an $80 million off-market transaction. Colwant of 99 Homes closed in excess of $1 billion in real estate transactions as a broker and is now setting up a broker dealer, in other words, an exempt market dealer or an investment bank based in Canada, utilizing our setup assistance because we know the ins and outs of this like it's the back of our hand. La Bruta Capital setting up and completed the setup of the fund that he would raise an excess of 500 AUM with in the future. And he got all the documents and everything he needed to get this started. US Housing Exchange set up their fund in underneath 2 weeks for them to be able to disrupt the traditional real estate markets in the United States. And Chris is built a strategy for his real estate investment trust. He has had substantial success in other sectors and is managing to come to build a real estate investment trust and know all the pieces that govern setting up a proper fund, including administration and everything, all through the relationships and the systems we have for setup. The Capital landed a lead investor after a simple analysis of his pitch deck, his material, so that he was able to close his first investor. And from there, he had substantial momentum throughout his career. Colt got all the documents that he was needed. This is a $1.7 billion valuation company that he was associated with, and we assisted him in setting up all of the information for that transaction, getting him the documents for him to compliantly, raise capital as he worked with some lawyers as well, and he was confident and ready to go. Jess Davis raised 32 million US using our relationships alone. And another problem, many people who are stuck on working on minor syndications, they have this direct relationship with their time and the amount of work that they put in. They manually reach out to people thinking that will get them the results that they need. And they don't have a way to have a team to work on their behalf for them to actually have a more predictable, structured way of executing a proper capital raise. That's why everyone Raises.com works with can get designated as a team that specifically helps them in understanding what type of requirements are needed to do the outreach. Having a team put underneath the company so that in the compliance way, people can actually know what types of transactions are able to be spoken about to what types of parties. And then from there, delegating and systematizing all of the outreach by having detailed reporting so that instead of relying on emotion and not knowing the cause-effect relationships of a proper capital raise, people are actually able to understand what causes what action and to get people to do exactly the right instructions when it comes to calling and communicating to novel investors. The Capital landed a lead investor after simple analysis of his pitch deck, his material, so that he was able to close his first investor. And from there, he had substantial momentum throughout his career. Colt got all the documents that he was needed. This is a $1.7 billion valuation company that he was associated with, and we assisted him in setting up all of the information for that transaction, getting him the documents for him to compliantly, raise capital, as he worked with some lawyers as well, and he was confident and ready to go. Rather than depending on one financier, Estev worked on using our network as well, and many different investors gave him bids for different prices. Colt used outreach rather than spend his one-on-one time reaching out to people throughout the process. So if you have the appropriate profit systems, mandate systems, setup systems, relational systems, and outreach systems, then you could be the person who we call the self-serve investment banker, who can actually close an eight-figure plus transaction for them to be able to scale the revenues and obviously the profit that they're making. And so what Raises.com does is we help people build these systems, these 5 systems, for them to become the self-serve investment banker. And we call this the 2-week ready, raise, repeat accounts, by preparing as much as we can for informational purposes in 2 weeks, and then getting the relationships to investors, broker dealers, family offices, private equity firms in situations where it's compliance to do so that the company can be that company for them to be able to hit the types of revenues that they're looking for. And so if you're looking to see what that is, what that does, simply put, it's a done with you service where we systematize, we delegate, and we give you all of our team resources for us to be able to work together, for myself and my team and working together, so that through group calls, different systems, and different processes, we're able to get you where you want to be. And we've raised an excess of $152 million US through these processes. And we're extremely excited to see if this is something that fits into where we bring you to our other members and work with you to build these 5 systems via a yearly subscription and a yearly membership. And so the membership is priced in the upper 4-figure range. And this is generally not for somebody who hasn't really done anything in terms of transactions, or they've never syndicated proper deals before. This is not somebody who's working on a pre-revenue startup that they're just attached to, and they don't like the idea of leaving that mentality of a one pre-revenue startup and doing something else. This is not for somebody who feels like they know everything. This is somebody who would like to see how the private capital markets works for either their first fund, their first acquisition at 8 figures plus, or a new transaction, a new acquisition at 8 figures plus for the purpose of them creating a fund or setting up and completing their acquisition. And so if you would like to see if this is something that would fit within your roadmap, simply put, right below, I believe it would be right below this video. Simply put, either myself and my team would walk with you, put together a step-by-step plan of how we would implement the membership and the systems into what you're looking to do for you to be able to become the person who can actually close this 8-figure plus transaction to scale those profit margins. And then step-by-step, you'll be able to see if this is something that is right for you. And if so, that's great, but if not, that's great too. At least you have the roadmap. And then going from there, simply just entering all the information in on the survey so that we know, what we're talking about. And so with that, after $152 million raised, being able to buy Raises.com, seeing a lot of things through the process, collaborating with masterminds that know far more than any one person. This is an interesting process that we've applied at scale, and we've seen it work repeatedly. And so if you would like repeatable results in something that is no hype, and repeatable results for you to be able to actually hit an 8-figure plus transaction to scale those profit margins, just hit that button below, and we'll see you in the next one. And so with this, I believe that this is the first step, and this may be one of the important calls for you to become the self-serve investment banker, somebody who takes control of their transactions and uses some of the secrets from the top investment banks to apply it to actually hit the types of transactions that they're looking for. And so we'll see you in the next video.